there's no other way of putting it than that. About or more than 1,400 new cases recorded in New South Wales today, so we've seen another little step up in the curve, and that 7-day average, importantly, is continuing to climb. We're just waiting basically for the effect of vaccinations across particularly Western and Southwestern Sydney to be felt strongly enough to turn this curve around. And the Premier said today that she thinks the modelling the government's received suggests that'll be in maybe a couple of weeks' time. And that means we'll see case numbers, unfortunately, continuing to grow in the meantime. We're just going to see them climb, hopefully not climbing too quickly, but you know, it wouldn't surprise me to see these numbers growing hundreds and hundreds more from here. That is the sad reality of the situation that we're in. And the sad reality is we're now starting to see some quite large numbers of deaths being recorded each day. 12 of them reported today. That was Melbourne's second wave back last year. This is now almost all the New South Wales winter 2021 wave, with 3 deaths in Victoria just in the last few days as well. But some significant numbers coming there, significant numbers of families grieving. And of course, this is not a pleasant way to die or to see your family members die, because you can't be with them. You can't be with them in the hospital ward because of the infectiousness of this virus and the way that they're being handled in ICU and intensive care wards and the like. So the sad thing is we're probably going to see big numbers and bigger numbers than this in the coming weeks as the pressure on hospitals goes up, as the number of people, particularly in intensive care, increases as well. We now have nearly 1,979 people in hospitals, 160 in intensive care, and 63 people on ventilators. Those numbers will trend up for, well, even if the case numbers started to come down now, those numbers here would continue to trend up for at least another week or two beyond that.
Yeah, and we're now looking at a nasty-looking spike in cases in Victoria.
Yeah, it's really escalated quickly in Victoria, just kind of a doubling. We hit the 100s 2 days ago, and now we've hit the 200s in terms of new cases, 208 new infections. And my fear is that what we're seeing is now some chains of transmission, some community transmission that had gone undetected in the community. And there's a few reasons I say that. Most of these cases today, something like 80% or more of the cases today, are in Melbourne's western suburbs, inner western suburbs, and increasingly the northern suburbs of Melbourne. Community transmission that has really only kind of presented itself recently, and people coming forward for testing now. And if you have a look at the number of unlinked cases in Melbourne, this red line, we're seeing, well, the curve there is virtually vertical. 31 cases a day on average. This doesn't even include today's cases, and we're seeing really large portions of cases at the moment unlinked as of the morning press conference each day. And so what we're, I think, seeing is that this virus has now become ingrained in these essential worker communities, spreading through households, similar sorts of network dynamics that we are still seeing in Sydney and have been very hard to control. That is the nub of this problem in Victoria, and that is why the Victorian government have said zero is really off the table, at least in the short term.
Casey, the Prime Minister has announced 4 million more doses of Pfizer will soon be on the way from the UK. What difference will this make this month?
Well, it's a pretty big difference, Gemma. 4 million extra doses coming, a bit earlier than we expected when there's so many major outbreaks underway. Let me show you the current vaccination rate. This is a national rate. 60.5% of the 16 plus population have had a first dose. What that roughly corresponds to is there are about 8 million people over 16 who are yet to get even a first dose. And Greg Hunt said earlier today that there are about 10 million doses to be available in September. So let's just do some back of the envelope maths on that. If half of the 8 million people, so 4 million people get their first dose this month out of those 10 million doses, hopefully we can do better than that. But if that's the case, well, you'd be at an 80% first dose rate by the end of this month, and that's nationally, not just in some of the hotspot states. So it actually could make a really significant difference and really pull forward the sorts of timeframes that we're talking about to get to the both the triggers that we're talking about in terms of opening up and easing restrictions and living with this virus in a kind of more long-term way, but also in terms of states with serious outbreaks at the moment, New South Wales and Victoria in particular, but also the ACT. Well, it's going to make life a lot easier in terms of getting the sorts of vaccination numbers that would start to bend the curve. So I think it will make a big difference, in short. It's good that we've been able to see those millions of doses come, because it will really speed up the pace towards 70, 80 and hopefully well beyond, hopefully to 90, 95% of the population as soon as possible.